welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're gonna head back to the late 80s for an aquatic horror film, being it's summer and all. But before we do that, do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Join me here, I greatly would appreciate that. And also, as always, a shameless plug for my TeePublic store. I'll leave a link for that in the description box below. And today we're gonna talk, in 1989, which is the year this movie came out that we're gonna talk about, there was 3 aquatic movies in theaters that year. 2 horror, 1 sci-fi. One was Deep Star 6, which came out on January 13th of 1989. And the other was a James Cameron movie, The Abyss, which came out August 9th of 1989. Now that's more sci-fi than it is horror, but Deep Star 6 was definitely a horror, aquatic horror film. And this one is an aquatic horror film as well. And today we're gonna talk about Leviathan. Yes, Leviathan came out March 17th, only 2 months after Deep Star 6 of 1989. It's rated R, it's an hour and 38 minutes long, had a budget of $25 million. I believe Deep Star 6 had a budget of $8 million. This one had a really large budget considering the time this was made, but sadly upon release it only made $15.7 million. Now to direct this film, they brought in George P. Cosmatos. He was coming off of Rambo First Blood Part 2, which was a huge hit, and Cobra with Stallone, which was a hit as well in '86. And in this film, we got RoboCop himself, Peter Weller, playing Stephen Beck. He is in charge of this mining operation on the bottom of the ocean. Richard Crenna, yes, Richard Crenna reteaming with George P. Cosmatos, because he famously played Colonel Troutman in the Rambo movies. He plays Dr. Glenn Thompson. He is the doctor on this workstation. Daniel Stern from Home Alone fame plays Buzz or Six Pack. Ernie Hudson, the great Ernie Hudson, plays Jones. He's a worker on this platform as well. And Meg Foster plays Miss Martin, and she works for the corporation, which we don't know if she's on their side or not, especially once the shit hits the fan. There's other recognizable character actors amongst the crew of this mining operation. And pretty much that's how we're introduced. We have these miners on the bottom of the ocean, and we have a few days left of working down there before they go up to the surface and get to go home for a while. And they find this ship. As a matter of fact, Buzz and this other woman who works on the platform find this wrecked, abandoned Russian ship that was sunk at the bottom of the ocean. He goes in, he finds some stuff, brings it back, and there's this bottle of vodka, which he takes a drink of, and this other woman, and pretty soon he starts having medical problems, starts breaking out in this weird rash, he's super cold, and he ends up dying and starts mutating along with this other woman who offs herself because she doesn't want to end up like Buzz, but they end up melding together because that's what this thing does. It's almost like this movie is literally a combination of The Thing, and you can see the parallels. If you've never seen it, watch it. You'll see the parallels there, and Alien. Pretty much it took The Thing and Alien and put it underwater in the situation, and that's pretty much Leviathan. This monster, once it kills somebody and takes over their body, they start melding together in this big creature at the end that they have to kill. And pretty much we got Peter Weller, Ernie Hudson character, and this other woman escape. Ernie Hudson's character gets killed. Peter Weller throws a grenade at it. It blows up, and they get rescued by the Coast Guard, and that is the end of Leviathan. So what to like about this movie? Well, the cast. The cast is great here. Very notable 80s actors, even before that. I mean, Richard Crenna, obviously from First Blood, the Rambo movies, but Richard Crenna was a terrific actor. Peter Weller, I always like Peter Weller, not even just from RoboCop. I like him here. He was on Psych for a few episodes. He was in other films. I always like Peter Weller. Daniel Stern is fun here as like the hot-headed, worker. Ernie Hudson is always, I love seeing Ernie Hudson on screen. He's always great, and he's great here as well. Meg Foster doesn't get a whole lot to do, but we do see her throughout. She is their contact with the corporation. And she's kind of, once the shit's the fan, she's kind of blowing them off saying there's a hurricane above, which they find out there was no hurricane. And, there's some shady corporation dealings with the stuff hits the fan because they don't want to be tied to this, so they're trying to bury it. But I think the story is pretty, it's pretty simple. They find this organism, they ingest it, and people start changing, and we get this monster. Very reminiscent of The Thing. Very reminiscent. I only say Alien because some of the shots and situations remind me of Alien, but The Thing, they definitely took inspiration from the Alien. Now, the special effects are pretty good. They were all done by Stan Winston Studios, so Stan Winston and his crew came in and did all the makeup effects for the monster and the blood effects. And they did the mechanical suits they wear to go out in the ocean, they built those as well. On a very short timeline, there's some cool documentaries on this disc that are ported over from the old Scream Factory disc. And they have, there's interviews with all the crew, like the special effects crews, and they said it was a tight timeline, and they barely pulled it off. And even they say they're not completely happy with the monster. It wasn't exactly what they intended. Although Stan Winston was able to shoot. George P. Cosmatos let Stan Winston shoot second unit for all the monster stuff because they knew how to light it. And I think the monster works pretty well. Between this one and Deep Star 6, although I do like Deep Star 6, that's directed by Sean Cunningham. That's a lower budget movie, but it has a nice little cast in its own right, and I like that monster. I think the monster here is a little more interesting than that film. I like both films to a certain extent, but I think the monster here is just a little bit more interesting to me, even though it's definitely has a lot of the same vibes as The Thing. The directing is good. George P. Cosmatos, he can shoot a nice picture, and it looks nice. They didn't shoot that much underwater. They shot dry for underwater, and it's just basically using certain effects to make it look like they're underwater and shooting it in a certain way, because most of it was not shot underwater. It was only certain scenes were shot in water or in a water tank. This was mostly shot in Italy because this was a co-production between U.S. and De Laurentiis studios in Italy. But I think it's a nicely handled movie by George P. Cosmatos. At the end of the day, is there any drawbacks to this movie? Considering this was in the 80s, yeah, there's a lot of parallels to The Thing here. It doesn't have the most complex story, but I don't think we really need it here. It's pretty much the same story as Deep Star 6. I mean, they were competing at the time to see who would get finished first. Deep Star 6 only deals with the Navy underground, with the weapons system. This is a mining operation. They're looking for precious metals like silver. And it does take place a little bit in the future, 2027, compared to 89 when this was released. It's not perfect, but I think, watching this again, and if you're a fan of this, the transfer, this is the Blu-ray. It's a damn good transfer. It's the best the movie's ever looked. I mean, for a very, very, since I've been watching this movie, this is the best I've ever seen the movie look. I think everything's pretty well handled here. It's just not the best movie, but I think it's entertaining. It's a lot of fun. I think the cast is really good here. So at the end of the day, I do like this movie. Now, Stan Winston Studios were up for all three of the movies, the aquatic movies that came out that year. They were up for The Abyss, this one, and Deep Star 6. Stan Winston decided to take this one, only because he was just coming off a directed Pumpkinhead, which I have to review. I've never reviewed Pumpkinhead, and that's a movie I really enjoy. And he didn't want to be tied up. He was looking for another product to direct, and he knew if he went with Cameron, they would be tied up for a very long time. So he picked this movie, and they decided to do the effects. Other than that, I like this movie. It's a solid creature feature. It's not gonna blow your mind, but I think between the effects, the acting, it's short, at an hour and 38 minutes long. I think it's a good length. It doesn't overstay its welcome. At the end of the day, I would give Leviathan an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 for Leviathan. If you've ever seen this bad boy, leave a comment down below, let me know. And if you have, and you've seen Deep Star 6, which one do you prefer? We're not gonna include The Abyss because that's not a horror movie, but the two horror movies that year were Deep Star 6 and this one. Let me know down below which one you prefer, or if you've ever seen this one. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video. I greatly would appreciate that. That's it for this one. I'll be back soon with some more reviews, but until next time, as always, bye.